Mics are hot.
Yes. Politics. Politics.
Not politics. We're not talking politics because, one, I don't keep up with it, and two, that's just a
I don't know.
thing you don't want to get into.
I don't know. We might venture in. We'll see. What's up, YouTube? All right, man. So today, America Competes Act, and of all things, reefing.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, there's a component of it that's littered in all of the big giant American Competes Act changes.
Not the first time something like this has happened. Won't
no.
be the last. So, for those of you who don't know, you've been hiding under a rock or something. Last week, the U.S. House passed a bill, and everyone's asking what we think about it. We actually have some deeper insight into what's going on than on some of those previous attempts. There's new players involved and stuff.
The opinions are all over the place, and it's could be, this has nothing to do with us, and it's open for interpretation, it's so vague, it's really not going to affect us, to the complete opposite side. The world is falling, the sky is falling, the hobby's over, I better sell all my stuff. Probably somewhere in between.
Somebody sent this to me, and the first thing I got out of it was when I was talking to my wife, and like, wow, I've never seen one of these things quite like this one. You're going to hear why this one's different today.
Oh, yeah.
Also, I like to say this one on these kinds of things is I'm going to mess this up. Randy's going to mess this up. Neither one of us are lawyers. Neither one of us are politicians. We are not lobbyists. So guaranteed foot and mouth today. And also, I mean, I was watching the comments pre-roll here. This is a political hot button issue. I can't wait to come read the comments afterward on this one. There is definitely picking sides on this one. All right, so the main target of this bill was creating opportunities for manufacturing and economic, American economic competitiveness. Some of it's wrapped around, making chips in the United States, which is totally understandable because chips are impossible to get now. And then hidden within there, 200 amendments. 200. Let's make jobs, let's manufacture stuff, and plus 200 other things.
Let's not let the world stranglehold our economic growth and cut us off from things, so we're kind of stuck in the water. And littered in there is like, and what about these animals?
It's funny. I got a text or whatever, a note on this one. It said, there are more suggestions in here, or more comments on ocean reefs than China. And I was like, wow. And in fact, it was funny, I called Jay at Ecotech and asked what his thoughts were on this, because he's pretty close to PJAC and some other things. And Jay's like, this is a fine example of American politics. 200 amendments attached to this thing. So in this bill, to create opportunities for manufacturing, economic competitiveness, hidden in there is this thing that says that they're going to create a white list of animals that can be imported into the United States. In addition to that, they're going to use this Lacey Act of the past, pile on top of that thing. And it also bans the interstate commerce of these animals. Yeah. Okay, so why are those two things spookier than anything before?
Spooky is, so typically imports and stuff have been a blacklist. You can't bring this in, you can't bring this in, you can't bring this in. Instead, they're going to flip it to a white list, or propose to flip to a white list that says, these are the approved ones, and they might miss all kinds of off the radar species and animals and different things. I don't even think coral species were listed in here. There was very specific some species, but
when does Goniapora make that list? When does that one get evaluated?
And what do you call it? I mean, we're internally debating saltwater names and proper nomenclature and naming and things like that within ourselves. Who's going to get it right for the whitelist?
Yeah, I don't know. So whitelist, totally scarier than blacklist. Blacklist means something's bad here, go do something about it. Whitelist means we're going to trudge through every single known animal that gets imported to the United States, and we'll evaluate each one, take your turn. Ugh.
That's scary.
Yes. Okay. Other part of this is state lines. So the first thing is like, generally, you would hear like, okay, we're like, Fiji's gonna shut down. Florida's gonna, or whatever. Somebody's gonna make some rules. Hawaii will shut down, whatever. But the first thing I went through my mind is, if you're going to shut down interstate commerce of whitelist animals that are on the whitelist, that means breeding and farming, and like aquaculture is off the table unless you only want to survive inside of Florida and only sell to Floridians.
Well, that's another problem too. Is like, do you whitelist? If we were talking about this from an invasive species point of view, do you whitelist? Is it a master whitelist for the entire 50 states? Is it a whitelist that affects the most prone to invasive species, and then that applies to everybody else at that level? Because what might be invasive in Florida is not invasive here in Minnesota, not one bit at all.
Yeah, dude, totally spooky thing, man. Weird whitelist, interstate lines. This is a new introduction into stuff. I've seen these things happen. I don't know, all the time. And it happens in every pet industry. And sometimes it targets an aquarium, sometimes it doesn't.
This one's really big. This one's really big.
Bigger than broad scope.
Bigger than like Hawaii ban.
Okay.
Yeah.
So another thing that's spooky about this is, like most politics, the agenda here is a little murky.
I mean, if buried in 200 amendments doesn't sound murky.
And it's kind of attached to something that you would assume is pretty important to most Americans, meaning being competitive on the world space, creating jobs, not being dependent on foreign powers for chips and stuff. I don't know, who doesn't want all that stuff?
Yeah.
I don't know. Sign me up. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but hidden in the middle of the other 200 things, right? So, what's murky too about this is what the agenda really is, and so. Depending on who you talk to, you will hear a different agenda.
This is where the the political sides, the arguments, it's that. This is where it really starts getting heated. Is what is this for? What is the agenda?
One of the other things you'll catch here is the enemy of my enemy is also my friend, right?
Yeah.
So if you hate that guy and I hate that guy, we're buddies. Right? So COVID is actually one of the guys is here, right?
Yeah, stopping the import of similar things like the Wuhan bat.
We don't want any Wuhan bats.
We don't want COVID again.
Yeah, so let's just cut off all animals so we make sure that we don't get any Wuhan bats because, A, dude, I'm not sure if that's true or not, but B, what about the humans that are coming over on planes by the tens of thousands a day? Are we worried about those things?
More worried.
Yeah, because those are the things actually brought here. A bat didn't fly here. Right? So I don't know. But more importantly, a fish didn't swim it here. And then there's also this interstate commerce or Lacey Act piece of this thing, which is invasive species. I will tell you, actually, I'm going to tell you, before we get into all this stuff, how people are always probably out there, how worried and how real is this?
Yeah.
So we've talked to a lot of people at various lengths, pretty high up in several areas of the U.S. government, and also some pretty big entities and how they're handling it and what they think is going to happen. And the universal opinion is, this is not going to be included in the Senate bill, which means that it won't actually make it through. But they will all say, also, I've seen crazier things happen. So everybody's giving it a 1% chance kind of thing. Right?
Yeah.
So maybe, but unlikely. And from the COVID perspective, let's just pretend that that was really the reason why this got in there.
It's a poor reason.
Okay, well, if that was really the reason, you'd assume that fish and coral would make the whitelist really rapidly. We'd very rapidly identify that clownfish did not bring COVID here and pose a very small threat to a pandemic in the United States.
Right.
You would assume
halitoxin, but not pandemic.
Okay, the next one is the invasive species stuff, and this is the piece that you hit on just a second ago.
Yeah, depending on, well, we're talking broad, broad pets. So not just aquarium hobby, not saltwater hobby, but freshwater, lizards, hamsters, exotic pets, mammals, and all these other rodents and things like that, bats. They all of them come from different parts of the world and they're different climates. They can only live in certain areas. Habitats are very specific for them. So when you bring them to the landmass that is North America or the United States, the crested gecko or these dart frogs and dendrobates that I'm bringing from the rainforest aren't going to survive up in Iowa and Montana, Washington, and things like that. It's just not the climate for it. So if this is going to be about invasive species, should it be down to the granular state level, and states can make the determination of what will be invasive to their ecosystem, or is the large overreaching hand of federal for invasive species, is that really the reason here?
So we talked to some people that are people, I guess, in our organization, talked to some people pretty high up in the U.S. government, and basically they all said they're going to fight against this because they would prefer that the states handle this kind of stuff.
Fish and Wildlife, it's in every single...
If it's really about invasive species, because, dude, lionfish are not invasive to Minnesota, right?
Guaranteed.
Guaranteed, yeah. So, there's all kinds of things, man, that, just aren't a threat to a specific ecosystem. So, and
it should be a decision based off of the people, the government agencies that live in the state. That's my own personal opinion. Fish and Wildlife under the Department of the Interior exists in every single state. They know best about the ecological, makeup of their own specific state.
And the sad part is, if you charge them to, then the Fish and Wildlife people are going to have to decide to regulate lionfish in Minnesota for no reason at all, and they don't want to do that.
Well, the problem is when there's another side of the coin for this argument being that, if the states start to regulate their own invasive species, then comes the point of the interstate transfer. So I'm going to have to regulate what comes in and out of Florida by means of shipping, driving, flying, what have you.
All right. So you can decide whether or not any of those two things are real, or if they're real to our industry or they're real to whoever. Again, the enemy of my enemy is my friend in these cases. So it really doesn't matter. All these reasons, some people are piling on from whatever direction.
Yep.
Okay, so the more standard one in here that a lot of people believe is kind of hidden behind all this stuff is the ethical treatment and sustainability of our hobby, right? Of reefing, which is a pretty long debate, and there's good things, there's bad things, blah, 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 but it always kind of seems to come down to, does, reefing harm, the ocean?
Yeah, does the pet trade and the pet industry harm where you're collecting these things from?
Yeah, and so the best way that was ever put to me, and I haven't done the studies, man. So, and if I go looking for them, I'll find a study that tells me whatever the hell it is you want it to say. But the best way, and it's sometimes logic just wins out, right? Yeah. And it's dude, we have no impact upon the coral reef. Dude, if you go look at a coral reef, we're looking in a sea of coral for the handful of artistically perfect corals that aren't too big, aren't too small, and have the perfect color in a sea of brown. Man, we're taking out almost nothing out of the ocean here. It is just not real.
I think if the world's impact to the ocean was a pie, and you had this reef keeping saltwater aquarium industry's impact, probably this really, 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 really tiny sliver, in my own opinion.
The general thing,
maybe it's a bigger sliver, but for me, it's not that.
Well, the real thing, if you're talking about coral reef, dude, it's environmental impact.
Yeah.
Acidification from extra CO2 in the air, adding carbonic acid, it's real. Nobody would, even the most polarized, politically opposite of this conversation would probably admit that I can measure the CO2 in the air, I can measure the pH in the water. It has definitely gone down, 100%. Every scientist, there's no. And it's not like weather that changes all the time, man. The pH of the ocean's pretty
Yep.
stable.
Yep.
All right, so in this case, ethical treatment, well, I'm not all that worried about this specific act. So like you opened up, there's like people, the sky's gonna fall, and there's people who are like, who cares at all? Well, it's probably like much closer to very unlikely than likely that this makes it into the Senate bill and then turns into law. We will find out as time turns out, but I wouldn't bet on it. All right. So in that spirit, though, I am worried about the next one, right? And that's a lot of what today's conversation is really going to be about, is how do we stave this off? Because it just keeps coming. It is inevitable. If you look around, you see it in every industry, you see it in every green conversation. It is going to pound you from all angles until it eventually wins. It's happened with parrots, it's happened with birds, it's happened with insects, it's happened with lizards and frogs, it happens to everything. If we sit here and think for some reason, man, it's not going to happen to corals and fish, I don't know if you got your eyes wide open. I don't know, man. Like that's more of a hope and a dream than it is predicting reality. So I'm more concerned about the next one and the one that comes after that and the one that comes after that.
It's most likely they're going to grow, or they're going to take a new, either they're going to grow the next one, like, I mean, just from the Hawaii ban to what we're talking about today is a big step up in like trying to regulate this hobby. And from there, it's probably just going to get bigger, or from a different direction, or a different approach. But we're going to get attacked a lot.
I actually didn't share this with you. So the first time this one came up to me was like, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago. And somebody brought this up that, hey, I can't even remember what it was about. But in the end, one of the stories that came out of this was, you'd think that this is about people that are, thinking about sustainability. You'd think about these invasive species. You think it's about like COVID or something. But a lot of it was actually just about money. Not surprised, right?
Not surprised.
Okay, but what they were doing apparently is or at the time, I don't know if maybe this is still going on, somebody can chime in. What they were doing was you can file frivolous lawsuits with the US government, spend all of these hours, these billable hours, filing these lawsuits that they know full well the US government isn't prepared to tackle yet. And after a certain point of time, if the US government hasn't gotten back to you,
Just get a judgment?
no, they have to recoup your lawyer fees.
Oh,
So this was all about a bunch of lawyers that are, going out there doing this thing with the sole function of
just to get reimbursed by the
creating
government.
very difficult to litigate things, only get reimbursed from the government.
It's like a free paycheck.
Wow, there's a special place for you. So in that spirit, the conversation for us, man, is do the things that you can really manage about. And a lot of it is really about that sustainable thing and being able to have a defensible position. And we're going to have a big conversation about that today because that's probably the ones that will come next and the one that will come after that. And how do we position ourselves to beat that so that this just isn't an issue to us, and we learn from all the people that came before us, and you know what? We can stand on our own 2 feet and do it proudly.
It's not necessarily pointed at the issue that we're talking, or that is in front of us today, because, like you said, you believe that this one is probably not going to make it, but more will come.
They will come again.
That's the point of what we want to talk about today.
New angle each time.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, so in the conversation of regulating fish and coral is going to keep coming. The heart of that, and my own concern, and the rest of today's conversation is about ethical treatment and sustainability. Is that real? People will debate it all day long. We're going to dive into that today. And is it going to keep coming, or it is going to keep coming until something's passed? It will. So just stop. This isn't necessarily a story of whether it really is ethical or not, because it just doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter if it's sustainable. It's going to keep coming until something passes, and none of us will like it at all or want this to happen. Some outcomes worse than others.
Yeah.
The current one, I would agree that everybody that I've talked to said that is the ugliest looking bill I've seen. We don't want that one. Okay, the severity though is likely closely tied to how we all approach it today and every day off after that. We don't have to learn the hard way. And it's all about changing the conversation and support. And so think about today how you want to talk about this going forward. Because if you want to talk about it the same way we talked about it 10 years ago, expect a really bumpy road going forward.
Yeah.
If you want to change, man, then you can expect something positive, or you just close your eyes.
Well, I think we're going to get to these. There's 3 paths that we're going to talk about to get there for this ethical treatment and whatnot too. And I would imagine that, you know, in varying degrees of your experience, your exposure to the reefing hobby, you probably fall in one of these camps. I can say there was a time where I was the first path. There's probably a time where I was the second path, and then there's also a time now where I'm the third path.
So the first one here, raise your hand if you are this person and you believe that this is the path that we should take going forward to fight this. Close our eyes and let the world happen to us.
No. There was a time. There was a time where I'm just in the hobby and the whole larger picture just wasn't on my radar, and not really concerned about it. And if it were to come up, I wouldn't be one of the drones of voices like yelling, picketing, screaming and stuff, because I'm just like, yeah.
Because I got some coral and fish in my house.
Look it. I'm taking care of this. Like, my future is right here, and it's doing really good.
This is not a priority for me.
So there was a time where I was like this, but.
Yeah, I'm just trying to have an aquarium, guys. Like, yeah, I mean, what am I getting involved here with? Okay, so, but those that don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it, and this history has happened everywhere. And, you know, we keep talking about, like, has it happened to parrots and lizards and insects and frogs and all that other stuff, dogs, cats, all of it, man. Every one of them. Freshwater fish, man, all of them. Like, we're like one of the last ones, right? So does anybody out there feel like somehow coral reefs and fish are going to escape this?
No.
For what reason do you think that?
No.
I don't know, man. So I don't know. I don't want to be doomed to repeat
that is a path. You can stick your head in the sand.
Okay. The next path in front of us is let's go prove to everyone that the reefing industry is done ethically and sustainable, man. We're going to go out there, we're going to gather all the data, we're going to get all the scientists involved, and man, we are going to prove this beyond a shadow of a doubt. We're going to write letters to Congress, we're going to sign petitions, we're going to hire lobbyists, interest groups to protect the hobby. I got a low expectation of that effectiveness based on other industries' outcome. I
scream and picket as much as you want.
Yeah.
If there is an agenda, it's probably going to go their way that the world.
It really actually doesn't even matter if any of that stuff is true, because the opposition will come up with just as many cases against it. So, like, I mean, sometimes I always think of that like a serenity prayer thing, man. Like, God give me the wisdom, man, to change the ability to change the things I can, wisdom to accept the things I can't, or something.
Something like that.
Yeah, I always think of that because like I could debate the first part all day long if you want, but in the end, it really doesn't matter. Yeah. You know, the part of it is we're on a trajectory, man. So, and I'm just gonna say it, like, it doesn't matter if you're right or wrong. We're on the wrong side of an inevitable outcome. The wrong side of an inevitable outcome. I'm sure there's a bunch of people that don't want me to say that out loud, but part of hearing that is part of deciding that we don't have an inevitable outcome. We can shape it, right? And it doesn't have to even be that hard, man. Like, it just have to make a couple of different decisions that are just slightly different than the ones that we make today. Yeah. And we're actually so close now in so many ways. We
progressively get closer and closer every year in this hobby to that. Yep.
Yeah, and you know, one of the things I was going to say too is, like, you even look at this outside of the animals, man. You look at it like an incandescent light bulb, right?
Oh, yeah.
I'm an incandescent light bulb manufacturer. Well, sooner
I
or
had
later,
a whole plant dedicated to any incandescent light bulbs, and now you're telling me we're changing everything?
I got a 100-watt light bulb that lasts 9 months, right? Somebody came out with one that does the same amount of light, dude, for 6 watts, you know, like less than 1/10 of it, and it lasts 5 years.
Not planned obsolescence.
Yeah, as soon as you saw that thing come in, man, like, it was like, as soon as you were Blockbuster and you saw that movies could actually go through a wire to somebody's house, and get on that bus all the way, man.
That was a big one. And we all know what happened to Blockbusters.
Yeah, so, yeah, I don't know. So the next thing, though, this is the path that I would suggest for everybody. And like the path of lobbyists and interest groups and protecting our hobby and signing petition and writing your senator and stuff, man, sure, we can do all that stuff. And,
Probably feels good in the moment.
and you know, it's probably a speed bump. It'll probably give everybody a little bit of breathing room to do the next thing, right? So, but in the end, dude, that will never be the solution on a long enough timeline. The third one is be a better version of ourselves, right? Which is demonstrate progress, that we're working to the same goals that you are. And the reality is action beats promise every day, and action is a defensible position. Meaning, I can promise you that I'm going to be a better person every day, and I tell you that my wife would tell you that's true. I promise I'll be on time today, but you know what? That promise is garbage if I'm late every day and I never make any attempts, man. And she's probably watching right now, laughing. You know, like, when are you going to be home right? So that's the reality of it. Is if we go and like when we're arming, you know, the pack or the whatever to go talk to a senator, you can say, well, yeah, they have all these great plans for the industry, and you know, it's going to be a better thing, whatever. That doesn't beat, you know what? We've gotten 20% reliance off wild caught in the last 2 years. We think we can get it to 40 in the next 2 years, and within 10, man, probably 80. And we can create an arc that's available to zoos and universities. We can be part of the solution the same way that in many ways the hunting industry and fishing industry is, you know, the solution to maintaining animals available in the wild. Like we help those industries help and hurt sometimes, depending on the area.
Manage.
And this by the state. But if you really think about it, you know, the oceans are in danger. And so, like, there's little arcs all over our homes. There's 50 little arcs in the office here. There's arcs all over Europe, all over Asia, all housing all of these animals, man. Like, potentially for a future generation as well.
Yeah, I think this, we have been on this path as a hobby for several years now. You take that, take the clownfish. Right? Who's out there collecting clownfish in the wild? I think we've gotten to the point where this is so sustainable that you know, a lot of people could do it in their own home. The thing here is, you know, to demonstrate progress, and then we're working towards the same goals. You know, you can point to that as, all right, here was our win, and here's yellow tangs, that's a win, and here's mandrins, that's a win, and here's, you know, these handfuls of fish that we're breeding, that's a win. You know, it took 10 plus years to get to the point where we are today. But, you know, to really make an impact here, I think that needs to step up at a faster pace. Right? Spending the next 10, 20 years to try to get to the point where, you know, we can prove that we're sustainable, to where they stop regulating this, we got this. You know, it'll take, you know, shorter time. We should see action and progress in a shorter time frame.
Yeah, so if clownfish, like if you're pulling, there's no reason to pull clownfish out of the ocean anymore, man. There's so many, dude. Breeding them is like so
everywhere.
simple. It was like the first generation, right? And now it's so cheap too, dude. There's no reason. But actually, I was talking to somebody, a good friend of mine, about breeding angels the other day, and like, you know, you would think that, well, gosh, this is all too expensive. We can't do this. You're gonna drive the prices up. It's not true, man. Like maybe initially you do, but like once you build the thing out, dude, it's probably cheaper to breed the things than it is go, you know, hunt them down the ocean, ship them all over the planet.
Well, the biggest part, and you know, for the seller of those types of fish and whatnot, you know, how many of you like go shopping and you search for organic? You know, there's this, you know, label that says somebody took the time and effort to make sure that no pesticides, no GMOs, none of this stuff is in this food, and I seek out that food because I like it, because it's better. Same in the fish industry, you know, like, wouldn't you be proud to tout that all of the fish that you sell in your store are captive bred, have little to no or negative impact on the ocean?
You know, like I would imagine, no, if there's only 3 species available.
True, yeah.
Yes, if you have developed 150, right? And so that was the thing of it is like, dude, it ain't actually that hard to breed these angels. Now, the people that do it well, hold it near and dear to the heart because it's a skill set that is, they're using it to provide for their families.
Right.
Right. But like, how do we help those people scale that operation so we can actually, replace the need for these things? All right. So here's the big question, Randy. I'm gonna put you on the spot. Are animals in reefing treated ethically, Randy?
Yeah, it's a yes and no question. I would imagine, in any of these like living animal situation, dogs, cats, any of the pet hobby or pets that we keep could have there's these bad apples and there's good apples, and there's people that keep their dogs chained up outside in this tiny little fence. They live there their entire life. They have a terrible life and unethical. Then there's the dog that gets to stay at home, and this is the family pet, and gets treated like royalty and whatever. That's that's not unethical. So there's both sides of the spectrum. Can anybody raise their hand in this hobby and say, I have never treated an animal in my tank or ever had an animal that was unethically treated, meaning that it lived its full course of life, that I cared for it as if it were in the wild, and now it just ran its course?
Here's the deal. If I told you to go and look at 10 of the importers' facilities, 10 just random fish stores, and 10 homes of where these things live in the reefer's house, you would find good actors and you would find bad actors. And the question isn't does that exist or not, because it's just true.
Yeah.
Some people do this better than others. Some have the desire to do it the old ways. Some have the desire to do it new and better ways. And it's just who's going to do it.
Well, so in the definition of ethical is such a broad spectrum. Like maybe I feel like I'm treating my fish ethically, but I'm maybe only feeding them once every couple days or once every 3 days, and is that ethical?
Yeah, there's a lot to this.
There's a lot
question.
to that question.
So the real answer to that isn't does it bad or good. Like you said, man, there's still puppy mills that exist, and there's still breeders that exist. There's a better way and there's a bad way, right? And so how do we incentivize the bad actors to become good? Because most of them, if it was economically in their best interest, would do it.
Yeah, I think that's probably the biggest reason that they don't is because
stuck in old ways.
Yeah, you're making money doing this old ways, and it doesn't matter how you got there.
Is what it is. Or how do we encourage the good actors to flourish? Take the people that already want to do good, give them more resources, give them more encouragement, and help them, brave the new path. These are the trailblazers, and they will get shot in the back, man, because there are risks involved with doing something new. But if you draw out the map, there's no question, man, the good actors will be the future of our hobby, and they'll be the reason why I don't just keep running these stupid acts.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Okay.
So
all right.
How do we turn more people into good actors that flourish?
Yes. So there are 3 stages of, I guess, reef care or ownership. One of them is sourcing. One of them is health of the actual animal when you get it. And then the third one's how do you care for it when you're done?
Yeah.
Like when you get this thing, how does the reefer at the end care for this thing? Okay. So normally this conversation starts the way you think it would, which is like
top of the pyramid down.
You sourced the fish, you found it in the ocean, you boated it here, or you flew it here.
Goes to distributors.
Blah, 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 blah. And then it ends up at a fish store, ends up at your house, whatever. I think it's actually in reverse.
I agree.
And so you'd think it starts with imports, but that's not true. It starts with hobbyist success rates, right? Limiting mortalities to begin with, and eliminating unnecessary demand. Like for every fish that all of us don't kill, there's less demand on another one coming out of the ocean. End of story, right? These animals can have higher success rates actually in our tanks than they do in the wild, sometimes by decades. In fact, the thumbnail that we had of "Do You Care About Me" on this video.
Oh, that's your 10-year-old?
No, man, I think he's like 15, 17-year-old clownfish, man, that I got at my first IMAX. I took that picture today. He's, living in a tank here in the office, man. He lived 15 years here in the wild. Dude would have never, ever, ever survived anything approaching that. And so if you think about, doing this well, it's about how do we make sure that they live, not like as long as like necessarily that any human being possibly could live or any organism, but like
Their natural lifespan?
let's help them achieve better results than they would in the wild, and then I can feel good.
Well, you think about early on in this hobby, decade or a couple decades ago, what was the survivability rate of any fish that you took out of the ocean and put in your aquarium?
Low.
Even the ones that we would consider easy to keep or novice or beginner,
All right, so here's the bad news, guys. This part makes me angry, and if it doesn't make you angry, I think you're on the wrong side of this. Like, you should be disappointed by this news, right? Because some of the people saying the negative things about us and our hobby are right.
So we're talking from the 3 points of sourcing, health, and the care. We're on the care, starting with us as hobbyists.
Us at home, how we are taking care of these fish. When I entered the hobby, I heard later on, somewhere along the line, the elephant in the room here is that there's 90% failure of reef tanks in the first 12 months. So I set up my tank, in 12 months that thing doesn't exist. And hidden within that message is, well, what happened to the animals then?
Oh yeah, it's not that my tank failed. When you think about what does my tank failed mean, dead fish, dead corals.
Even if it's just filled in algae and I brought the fish back to the aquarium, man, that means that if I got them back to the fish store, 90% chance they land in somebody else's hands that also didn't have the same effect. Okay.
Unsuccessful, yeah.
All right, so that was the news that that was just like the shooting from the hip number that was shared with me. And I'll be frank, I tended to believe that it sounded about right to me. And about 9 in 10 couldn't get past the algae, got terrible advice from somebody, just didn't know what to do. And the process of listening to everybody in the universe tell you what to do on every forum, and you just never pieced it together right. I wasn't surprised if that was true. All right, so here's the sad part. I got a pulse on this. I think that number turned out to be true.
That 90% of people don't make it past a year.
Okay, this is where I got this from. We got this from when we acquired Marine Depot last year, right? We looked into their data and we found out that roughly 87% of the reefers there,
New customers,
didn't make it a year.
didn't come back to continue to buy.
3% away from what the shooting from the hip was, right? Oh wow, that's ugly.
Yeah.
That is not
good
good news.
I mean, you could say that maybe some of them just didn't continue to buy from Marine Depot and bought somewhere else, but the majority of 87% is likely due to failed their tank in the first year.
I'm gonna give you a contrast to that because we had our own data. I just had never seen that one, right?
Well, it's avoidable. It's the problem.
Yeah,
right?
So that is totally avoidable, 100% avoidable, and I'm gonna show it to you in just a second why that's so avoidable and such garbage. And if that doesn't make you angry, that is the general pulse in the hobby, man, nothing really will, right? Okay, and so in that case, man, I know this because 65% of all of you being BRS customers make it 5 years.
65% are customers are continually purchasing for their tanks
5 years.
after 5 years.
And you know what? 15% of you, roughly anyway, have 5 tanks, man. This is not failure, right? You guys are the information seekers. You are the people that said, I don't want to fail. And when you went out and sought out information and applied it, you didn't, right? And so, like, it isn't true. And like BRS is the largest online retailer in our hobby by a huge magnitude.
It's true.
Meaning the number one leader here has way higher success rates, man, than what used to be. And it wasn't always that way. I mean, we were always, for much of the history, we were below Marine Depot. Right?
And not you know, the thing about it is like not just past a year. 5 years is a pretty long run for a tank. Some going even 10 years, but the 15% have more than 5 tanks.
Yeah. Only 10% 1 year versus 65 for 5. Totally different trajectory. All right, so why is that, man? And this is that heart of that piece of like, if we can be successful, we can stop the demand on unsuccessful and contributing to mortalities and the ugly side of this thing. And if I'm having these things successful for 5 years, like it's almost certain, man, this animal is better off in my tank and it's actually living a longer, healthier life in my tank than it is in the ocean.
This is the type of data of being successful as an aquarist for multiple years to decade and decades plus that will change that will drive that, hey guys, you up in the government and all of these people making decisions, like this hobby is sustaining itself and we're becoming more and more successful at keeping these animals.
So the difference too is like I told you, man, you should be angry about the failure rate because it's so avoidable. The other part of it is if you're in this other group, man, of people that made it past that and not having these problems, you get to say, I am one of the good actors. I am one of the people that sought out information, did it well, and I'm caring for these animals. And that's why I don't understand the other side of this conversation, because who's doing it other way than I would do it?
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So pat yourself on the back, man, if you're part of one of those groups of people. And this is the reason why I think it happens this way at BRS. It's because 300,000 of you in the last month watched 1.5 million BRStv videos. These are all people seeking out information and how to do this better. And when they find that information, they just last longer, have more success, and care for the animals better. End of story.
Oh yeah. I mean, I wouldn't be like the bass fisherman I am today if I didn't watch all of those videos, decide that I'm going to apply all of those, you know, techniques and tactics, and then now I can go to a body water and, you know, catch bass.
So just
the same thing.
If you guys didn't catch it, that's actually the secret sauce to BRS that like we haven't really shared it in that manner before, because you know, how did BRS end up becoming what it is? I'm like, dude, because we sold pumps better than somebody else? Because that's just certainly not true.
Everybody had a place to go to buy a pump, buy a skimmer.
It's because all of our competitors were letting 90% of their customers fail every year, and they had to go find new ones every single year to replace it. Where all of you guys are being successful and you just layer on top of each other, man. Like success builds success. And then from our perspective, like great, man, great for the business, but also something that we can all feel proud about as well, right? Like this is a business that does it better. This is a reefer being you guys that does it better, and we all belong in the same pool. So I do share this though, not the secret sauce here, not to like pat you on the back and pat me on the back and pat Randy on the back and everybody here at the BRS team, but it's to acknowledge, man, that 90% failure garbage doesn't have to be true. And you know, I welcome like everybody that can share information, get out there and do it, because that is what will change the trajectory of the hobby, eliminate all of those failures. So here's the piece, man, that like Randy and I, when we were discussing this topic today is, yeah, you can have just like random information about this and thought sharing, what you should do or not do.
Should, yeah.
Right? But what are you actually going to sign up for, man, to do better in the future? What are you going to say, nah, man, the buck stops here. We're going to do our end better than we did before.
This is my hobby, and I'm going to fight for it now.
Yes. All right. So right came to mind to me is just keep investing in the investigates, because for us, that's where all the information comes out of. How do we do it better? How do we do it more intelligent? How do we get to the high percentage results? And for those of you who haven't been following,
that's where innovation is.
Yeah, we've been doing this biome testing. So the biome testing has been, how do I cycle a tank, right?
Basically answering the question, what's the best way to cycle a tank? Like the highest path of success for anybody who wanted to start a tank. we're actively investigating it.
We got 12 tanks, man. We got 12 different methods.
It's been going for 3 months now.
As soon as we get to the last biome test in the next 2 weeks, we're going to restart it with another edition of this test, because we want to hone into it. Like, if 9 or 100 people started a tank and wanted to cycle it, 99 would be successful, right? 99, man, that's the goal. Like, sorry, one guy. But yeah, I mean, like, we just have to keep helping. Like, that 90% failure, garbage. 99% positive outcome, man, is what we're looking for. And so let's just keep investing more and more information, more investigates, help everything we can do to reduce the demand on mortality replaced fish.
Well, that's the thing. That's the biggest one. The
And coral.
more successful that you are, that we are as hobbyists, the less impact we have, and then we can point to it and say, you know, our impact from 10 years ago to our impact now has diminished by 90% because we've gotten better at keeping these animals and keeping them alive.
You know, and some of those things is like, now, like, you didn't know it in year 2, but in year 17, I know, like, all of the failures that happen in year 1 to 2 are technique problems. Mm-hmm. All the failures that happen in year 3 to year 10 are, you know, reliability of the life support problems. Like, the gear just breaks and you're like, you have to be there to fix it. Right. I have to anticipate it, redundancy, all that kind of stuff. So, you know, you start to realize, like, how do I make it 5 years? And, like, the skill sets evolve, you know, over time, and the investment in it change as the pride in the tank goes up as well.
Yeah.
I will say also, man, like, this is really easy for us to say because this more investigate stuff and more information is because this is our sweet spot. This is what we've been doing for, you know, a decade plus.
We're not growing and selling corals professionally or on a professional business level to sell them. We're not raising fish and reselling fish. The gear and you know, learning more about the hobby. We have the resources to test the things that nobody really else has the resources and access to. This is why, like, this is our area to improve.
I'll just say it. As someone who sells gear, we should be held accountable to help you use it successfully. End of story.
End of story.
Yeah. Next one. All right. So now we're all healthier, man. Now we've gotten to a world where not just BRS, but everybody is making it 5 years.
The hobbyist
99% are making it fast first year. We've totally changed the trajectory of that stuff.
So now if the masses are doing better for our hobby, the next tier up is selling and adding healthy animals.
Creating a defensible position when these stupid acts show up that we do it better than everybody else, and we are not part of the problem like the stupid parrot people were, you know, like just ripping them all out and they're all gone. Mm-hmm. No, man, like we are not part of that problem. We are part of the solution. We're doing it proactively. Okay, so selling and adding healthy animals, meaning the first number one thing here is this is all about quarantining at the store or at home. Yeah, it's all like healthy animal means that I bought a pet that put it in my house and it's healthy, right? I don't really believe in the home path past the 1%, even less for first timers, meaning that you're going to be able to do currently, as we talk about it today, the average person is going to quarantine at home with really high success rates and actually reduce mortalities. In the world that we live in today, it will change. Mm-hmm. But in the world we live today, I just really don't believe that, and I definitely don't believe it I'm doing this for the first time.
Oh yeah, I don't think I'll get there.
Like, I just decided to buy a tank and a clownfish today.
I mean,
quarantine, no way.
Yeah, so, you know, getting these healthy animals at home, like you said, it's probably not for more than the 1%. You know, the one problem that can be kind of caveat on from the last, from what we just talked about, is the barrier of information, the information to be more successful to do this at home or as a first timer. So, you know, and where we sit today, that's not the information. The information isn't readily available as it is for other things.
It is in the same way that like Dana Riddle's articles existed, just nobody read them.
Yeah.
Right. If you only stopped to read the
Assemble it.
Dana article, we had the answer to this question, man, 15 years ago. Just nobody paid attention.
Nobody assembled it and put it into here, do this.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's out there.
Yeah.
So then the burden of the burden of this, as it sits today, should be then where? On the stores, on the importers.
Okay, I'm just going to say it the way it is, and this is going to be a really unpopular sentence with a lot of people, even some people, man, that I care about and have businesses that I want to help them thrive. But at the end of the day, dude, it's still true. It is that the onus on healthy pets is on the people selling the pets to provide healthy pets. It isn't on us to buy unhealthy organisms, man, and try to fix it.
I think that holds true in the top two pets of the pet industry or the global pet industry, dogs and cats. Like the health of the animal that you are selling to people is on you.
Dude, can you imagine if the person's like, "Hey, dude, I'm going to give you sick puppies. It's your job to turn them around."
I collected all of these from, down in some dirty, desolate place. I gathered them all up for you. Here, this one's yours. This one's yours.
This one's got coughing and is coughing and has visible parasites.
Treat him at home.
Yeah,
that would never work.
No way.
Yeah. Okay.
So like we have to like the standard today is that like it's just okay. I don't know, man. Like so here's the thing about it is shift from the hope and pray to acceptance. Like right now, so many people just dump hope and pray that it doesn't get my house sick or my not only that thing doesn't die, but it doesn't kill everything else in the tank.
Well, that hope and pray extends all the way, not just from when I bring it home to maybe some LFSs are just like, hey, I got it in. I'm hoping and praying that it stays good until somebody comes and buys it out of my display. And then the same thing on the import end. Like I'm hoping and praying that all of these fish that just came in, all of them or most of them make it.
So here's the bit. Like as a hobbyist that has one tank at house, it's hard to really know the answer to this question. And even by the hope and pray method, right? We've had it here where like hope and pray method worked until there was a power outage and the temperature dipped 4 degrees, and then all of a sudden that Achilles tang like broke out in ick and wiped everything out with it.
Yeah.
Became the ick magnet breeding farm. Man. Like so, it's not even just it seems like it's going to good today, but you're just waiting for that one thing to go wrong in the next 5 years, and then you don't make it to that level of success. All right, so. Everyone that is in this hobby for a long time, everybody really has seen these animals and how the system that they go through and snake through to eventually make it to your house will say shift from that hope and pray approach to acceptance that holding bins and nature are filled with disease and parasites. Bad things happen when they're added to a small box of water with a high concentration of hosts. Just true. So what do we do in that environment? Well, we're going to have to learn how to quarantine. And so we keep telling you that we're going to teach you how to quarantine with Elliot's help.
We're getting there.
Yeah, we're getting there. He was actually supposed to be here today. But the problem is he's breeding fish and he has little baby fish and he can't leave them because they got to be fed like multiple times a day, if not by almost the hour when they're really small. And so like, he can't get here to do this stuff, and it's just always something comes up, man. We just got to stop that excuse, though. And one of those cool excuses that can stop is now Matthew, my first fish tank, who's on the other channel of ours, the Bulk Reef channel, actually lives in LA too. So maybe he can go down there and work with him on this topic. That'd be awesome. And related to how he's breeding, dude, one of the things that in relation to adding healthy animals is farmed coral and bred fish have way higher survival rates than wild.
They're just hardier. Like corals that were raised, farmed, and fragged in the artificial box, and then shipped and sent and put into a different artificial, but they're just used to that environment.
Imagine the journey of a coral. Like, gets plucked off of Indonesia, like sits on the beach for a little bit, goes and finds its way to a holding bin, gets on a plane, flies all the way around the world to LA, sits in a holding bin, then goes to a fish store, sits in another holding bin, and then makes it to whatever quality of water is at your house.
Yeah.
Or the guys over at Worldwide Corals farm it and back, ship it to your house, and it's there tomorrow, and it's
colors are the same,
in the same water that it was lived in.
Yeah.
It's probably using similar lights than you're using at home. It has used to artificial seawater. It's used to artificial lighting, artificial flow, and it has multiple generations of that. You can see real quick why there's total different mortality and success rates. And also, you don't see the color changes on them. You don't see all kinds of negative things. You don't have the same kind of risk of pests from the wild.
Yeah.
All kinds of things that just don't happen if you farm it. Same thing with breeding the fish.
Well, we used to have a hard time keeping mandarins. Now mandarins are bred that they are trained, frozen fish food feeders. In pellets and fish food. Like, if I can start to breed a class of mandarins that can eat prepared foods, then my chance of the survivability of that fish versus one that, God, I hope I have copepods in my tank for this thing. Yeah.
So what can BRS do, and what can we sign up for on this front, right? One, we can sign up to support breeders and farmers. So I was talking to Worldwide today about a couple of videos. I'm going to fly down there and shoot with them. And he told me today, man, that they do 60+% aquaculture now, and they're shooting for 90, knowing that 100% is going to be necessary in the near future.
Yeah.
They are not letting the world happen to them. They are happening to the world.
Yeah, so, if you didn't catch it earlier in the stream when we first started, the thought process here for today's conversation is that this, out of the 200 amendments, this Lacey Act one, we've seen this type of stuff before, probably not going to make it through in our opinion, but it will come up again. And now we're talking about how we can stop this from coming up again.
How do we stave off the next thing and the one after that and the one after that, and it's being a better version of ourselves.
Yes.
All right, so in that spirit, we can support breeders. We can support the farmers. We can support those that sell healthy pets and get to the end of the home QT series. So I think of QT at home as there's two problems with QT at home that, like, why people don't do it. One, I think of it as the perfect rack of ribs, right? I could spend a lifetime, man, trying to figure out the right smoker, the right seasoning, the right cleaning, the right whatever. And if I did it on my own, man, it's going to take me 10 years to figure it out.
To perfect it. Yeah.
Or I could go over my business partner Andrew's house, and if he was kind enough, he would just show me his 10 years of work, and tomorrow, man, I'd be able to make a perfect rack of ribs pretty damn close. It was not that the application of the knowledge is actually that hard, it's the acquisition of the knowledge that's that hard. And then also, one of the problems that I've seen with QT is, the people that are sharing this information are all thought leaders, and they're all various degrees of scientists in many cases, and they like to protect their butts. Meaning they don't say definitives and they don't like to leave out things. And so if you're going to do treat for ick, here's the 16 different ways to treat for ick, and they don't really tell you the one that they would do, which is what you guys want. I don't really necessarily, maybe phase 2 or 3 I want to know all that stuff. Right now, I just want to know a way to eliminate ick, velvet, urineme, that one's difficult, brook, and flukes from the tank. If I can hit all of those with one reasonable method, man, mission accomplished for a vast majority of people, and not the 15 different ways to do it, just if I was going to recommend to my grandma how to do this, this is the way I would do it. And I'm not, protecting my butt to her. I'm just going to give her the best guidance I could possibly give.
Well, if we can get, if we can get that buy-in, like, if we can help make those videos to make people at home successful with QT, coupled with the local fish stores implementing their own QT process to the point where it's a selling point at how well cared for these and the high survivability of these fish are that I'm selling to you, big impact on the future.
So one of the differences too here is the difference between being able to make a rack of ribs and being a pit boss is I know all of them and I know how to correct for issues that come up, like the wood's burning too hot, blah blah blah. That becomes a pit boss, right? So if my only goal was to teach you how to quarantine the fish proactively, well, you know what? That's actually not that hard. Now, if your goal is to treat a ick outbreak, treat a brook or velvet outbreak, this is getting closer to veterinarian, right? Because you have to identify the disease, you have to identify the right method. In some cases, you're going to have to get them to fish to eat the right medications, and a bunch of different things are going to have to happen that are difficult. And you're going to have to do them inside of a reef tank in many cases, where instead, if I did it before they went in, I'm going to dramatically reduce the chances I have any of this. I can definitely teach QT or teach QT. Can I teach how to treat those things? That is definitely level 2, 3, or 4. Beyond you're becoming the fish veterinarian. First step can be done. Shouldn't be confused with step 4. All right. So selling and adding healthy animals. I'm going to tell you right now, if the industry doesn't change to a standard of that the people selling the pets have the accountability to provide healthy pets, we're on a low outcome trajectory, right? Okay, so next one, sourcing. So this is, where do these fish come from out of the wild? Are they farmed? Or where do the corals come from? Are they maricultured? Are they farmed on shore? Are we just plucking them out of the ocean?
Are they bred and raised on land? Are they bred and raised in the ocean? Are they pulled from the ocean, raised and reared and released back into the ocean?
Yeah, so this is where a lot of the debate actually comes in. And I wish that a lot of the conversation, that first part, there's a part about, are you pulling stuff out of the ocean? Is it sustainable? Those first two parts that we talked about, which is making sure we have healthy animals going in there and caring for them, and then having 5-year success with them instead of 12 months of success. That is how we erase that whole bit about how many animals die in our hobby. That needs to be erased. We have to get rid of that, shed it off of us, get it out of the DNA of this hobby. No, man, we care for our pets, and in fact, they last longer, healthier lives inside of our tanks than they do in the ocean. End of story. That is what we need to get to, but
That's an audacious goal.
It's not, man, it's not.
It's not that far away.
It actually makes me mad when we think that it's hard, because it's not, because all the people watching here today are people. If you watch now, man, an hour into this video, dude, you are engaged in your tank and you are doing this better than other people. There's no way you're not.
Yeah.
Right? So we can't help the other people get the same thing. All right, so sourcing, what does good look like? Okay, so this is the part that, a lot of times you talk about bad actors and stuff more than the rest, and good actors. Funding breeding, farming efforts is probably the most important. In the end, most of freshwater fish, I believe, are now farmed. Most of lizards and parrots and all that stuff are all bred. So how do we get to that, standard now? And it has to be funded. And when I say funded, I mean everyone. The wholesaler needs to fund it. The local fish store needs to actually promote it, like you mentioned, man. All these things here are actually better, man, for the world, you, and your tank. BRS needs to help fund it. And the reefer has to do it too. And nobody likes to hear, man, that like the end person, the person buying this stuff, has the
pay
responsibility.
more money. Yeah.
Nobody wants to hear that. But it's true, dude. None of the other things are going to do any of this if you guys don't ask for it or want it.
Yeah, this is a big hurdle, you know, in the whole sourcing aspect of you know, where our hobby is going. In that, you know, the money right now, the bulk of the money isn't going towards the bulk of the saltwater aquarium industry dollars. Isn't going towards research and development for breeding new fish or breeding different species in fish, and then, you know, reducing the impact. Bulk of the money is going for, you know, me, Joe Blow Reefer, am willing to buy fish that probably has a pretty low success rate to begin with, but man, are they cool, and I'm going to buy them. And you know, if we were able to raise the funds today and say, okay, all of us reefers, every single person with a reef tank donate $5 to this or to this GoFundMe, and we can build some plants and whatnot. It's not going to be as instantaneous as that, but you know, we're talking like the next 5, 10 plus years of how this hobby is going to be, you know, more sustainable, more ethical. Maybe you pay, you know, extra money for those already captive bred fish. Maybe you make a stand as a hobbyist and say, you know, I'm only going to buy, you know, corals that were farmed, and I'm only going to buy fish. Maybe I only get 5 fish because there's only, you know, a handful of fish being bred right now. But dang it, you know, I'm supporting with my dollars.
So when you hear more, I mean, most people are like, well, I don't want to pay triple for that, right? It might actually be cheaper in the end.
In the long run?
Yeah, because like, dude, breeding clownfish is not an expensive task.
No.
You know, breeding even angelfish is not an expensive task. I mean, it's getting that facility up to begin with will have some cost.
It's a hurdle.
But after we get that, these things are actually going to go back down because you're going to be able to produce them faster than you could harvest them out of the ocean in most cases. And many of these things weren't even available, man. Like if you wanted a healthy regal angel, dude, good luck. It is very difficult to get one that A, just get it, period. B, to get it one that is eating and healthy. Now, if you bred it and it was eating and healthy artificial foods from the time that it was basically spawned, well, you know what? Dude, that guy's going to be successful in your tank, and it's worth double, but it probably won't even cost double.
Well, you know, that gets back to the increase in cost of you know, fish and corals and things like that. For those who've been in the hobby for any extended period of time and remembers, you know, when things were extremely cheap, this hobby has grown. There's more and more people in the hobby. There's a higher demand for these things, for these types of fish in the hobby. So, you know, with increased demand, increased price, this is why that price of captive bred will start to go down, because I can produce, raise, and rear these fish that every hobbyist wants faster than I can go source it from the ocean, ship them. The loss of survivability, you know, the survivability rate in these holding facilities before it gets to me, a lot of that gets cut out because, you know, we're buying, you know, swaths of captive bred.
Yeah. Also, next one. This one is just real too. Like, we need to self-regulate low percentage fish and coral. We have to not wait for somebody to do that to us. We have to do it to ourselves.
The hard to keeps of the world.
Yeah, so everybody can think of 5 fish right now that probably shouldn't be taken out of the wild. And if you're thinking that, it's probably true, and we should probably stop doing it, because we can look to people when they come to these stupid acts and, you know, they're trying to regulate our industry. They're like, no, man, we already did it for ourselves. We don't need the regulation. Look, we're already pulling that stuff out. Now, I'll say there's some caveats to that, because like self-regulating really also means at the store level, you know, online or off.
Choose not to sell those types of fish.
Choose not to sell them, or tell you what information that low percentage means. Meaning, right now it might say experts only.
Yeah, I don't know what that means.
What the hell does that mean, man? Like, does anybody know what expert only means? Because I feel like an expert, but that doesn't mean I can take care of that fish, right? What if expert only means, instead of replace that stupid sentence with fish needs to be fed 6 times a day this type of food? I'm out.
I could make that decision, you know.
Yeah.
It's like reading the ingredients on food. Like I can make the decision that, hey, there's the list of ingredients. Not a big fan of that one. I'll go find something else.
Yeah, like I don't want to do that. That's an unnecessary level of work that I may do now, but I ain't gonna do for 5 years.
Oh, it's like people who go buy dogs. There's different, behavior patterns for different dogs. They fit your different lifestyles. If you live in a small condo or apartment and you're at work, 9-10 hours a day, that big, German Shepherd that needs all kinds of exercise and can't sit around in the house all day is a big dog. That's not the dog for you.
Okay, inverse is true too. What if you are a real expert and you love and adore this fish and you really want to do it right and you don't want to kill it? They've now given you the information to be successful. I will figure out how to reliably feed this thing 6 times a day.
Yeah, but the problem is that
nobody told you.
Yeah, the information isn't there. The care knowledge and everything it's there. It's out there in the world. We said this earlier on. Nobody has put that together and delivered it in like some Coralpedia or something.
Yeah, well, and it's like I commonly think of antheas in this. Like it's just like, oh, antheas just die. Well, the animal doesn't just die. It's either water chemistry, nutrition, husbandry, habitat. Like, which one is it, man? And in this case, it's almost certainly nutrition. All right, so which one is it? We can solve nutrition. You just had to tell me.
Yeah.
Right?
I didn't even know what the thing needed for nutrition. I'm feeding my entire tank the same thing every single day at the same time every single day. Does that mean that everything in there is taken care of? That's not true.
I think that goes every fish, man. Mandarin, copper band, Moorish idols,
yeah.
All these things, they don't just die. There's a reason that it died, and it's probably habitat, it's probably nutrition, it is probably husbandry with other fish, it's probably flow patterns, it's probably something, man, like it just doesn't die, right? There's a reason. Right?
Yeah.
And they're all solvable. And usually, most people that are selling these things actually know, and this is the conspiracy theories for me, but I believe that the reason it doesn't say feed me 6 times a day or I'm the only fish that can be in your tank or any one of those things is because if you did, you wouldn't buy it and they wouldn't sell it, which is so short-sighted.
You're encouraging people. I think that's the fear of encouraging people not to buy.
The reality is I'm going to fill my tank up with fish, dude. I just want healthy ones, and I want ones that are going to survive. So I actually earn trust with you if you tell me not to buy the one that I thought I wanted, right?
Yeah.
And get the ones that help me be successful. Because, yeah, that fish is cute or whatever it is, I like its behavior, but I also am unwilling to do that. Or I am willing to do it, but now I know and now I'll be successful. So, like, they were going to buy fish. They're going to fill the tank up with fish. You might as well tell them how to be successful.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, another one is better care and handling. So, handling meaning, like, the whole process of coming out of the ocean, going to Indonesia, going to Fiji, going to California, going to the fish store, going to your house, all this other stuff. So one of the conversations I've had with one of the fish experts in our industry recently is like, yeah, purple antheas, don't buy them. They're just gonna die, right?
They'll never make it to the States.
Right, some miracle, once in a while somebody's lucky with one. And I'm like, dude, but that's just not true. We went through the nutrition thing, and he's like, yeah, it's absolutely the nutrition issue. But the problem is they needed to be fed, multiple times a day at the holding facilities along the way.
Yeah.
So if you really wanted a healthy one of these, what you probably have to do is find somebody who can go to one of the LA distributors the day the purple antheas come in and start feeding them immediately, and then get them to you, and then tell you what to do. No, it's possible, but if they don't eat for 5 days the way they're supposed to, and they're sitting in copper and all that stuff, their stomachs get distended, and then they're just going to starve to death and die in your tank.
Yeah, it seems like an easy fix. Feed the fish all the way through the process. The problem is getting the people getting the suppliers from outside the U.S. to share that mentality of keeping the fish alive rather than making a buck.
Every stage. Every stage of the
Oh
journey.
yeah, 100%.
You know what I wish there was, and a lot of people have talked about this, is like the stamp of approval, like the seal or certificate. Like there's some kind of standard. It's like, you know, USDA organic or something, right? Like, you know, this is certified, you know, this is the process that we use for these fish. This is the standard that we have for these corals. This is how, you know, we make sure that these animals are treated well and healthy, and like we respect the whole process, so that when you know, some, you know, new law shows up, you can say, nope, everything that you've been told is garbage. Look at all these places that have the seal of approval. This is the standards that they hold. Hopefully there's some independent thing that's going on.
You could say, this is that, yeah, I mean, self-regulation. USDA regulates, you know, beef and, you know, meat products and things like this. There's quality control in a lot of the things that people consume. The problem is like there's no control over the quality in like this specific hobby, probably in a lot of different hobbies and whatnot too. But if we were developed like that USDA stamp, but it's our own industry recognized regulation that we put this in place on our own, and it's got this stamp of whatever that we all agree on is the best ethical care. That is the type of the behavior that halts these conversations in government.
Yeah, and again, man, you can debate all this stuff all you want, but like all this is coming at us whether we want it or not. They're going to keep having these acts come. It's all about having a defensible position when it comes. It's not about writing your senator and all the other garbage, because that is a speed bump. Maybe it helps, maybe it doesn't, but like it's about being a better version of ourselves. And so in that spirit, self-regulation here, don't sell it. I think of Moorish idols, I think of sea apples, I think of some NPS corals that come to mind. You know, like, dude, if 99 out of 100 of these things are going to die, stop it. Just stop it. Like, there's just no reason to kill 99 animals, man, just for one guy to be lucky. But here's the real reason here, man. That doesn't actually have to happen that way, because that decision, when you say, you know what, we're not going to bring Moorish idols anymore, somebody should behind the scenes say, no, maybe we should just actually figure out what the Moorish idol needs to be successful in the tank. And you know what, I know Jerry, Jim, and Jill, and they actually know the answer.
Yeah.
Let's go find out, and let's share it with the world instead of hoarding all the knowledge, right? I think of the tank trial we did of the clown harem thing, right? Everybody says you can't do it. Everybody says that you can't have more than 2 clowns in a tank. They're all just going to kill each other eventually. I don't know, dude. We did it for 5 years, and we documented it the whole time.
Yep.
And we found out that it was about diet, it was about aggression, it was about husbandry, it was about habitat. And once you solve all those things and you think about what that animal actually needs from all of the main things and give it to it, 5 years success.
Proved you wrong. Yeah.
It wasn't about you can't do it. It's about how do you do it. It's like the Tang police. You can't have 2 tanks. That's total crap. You can have more than 2 tanks. You just don't do it wrong. You don't let one get super established and then you add another one that's littler than it and just watch it get eaten, or the same size is actually the worst time.
The habitat, all of this stuff.
And dude, so it's not about if you can or can't, man. It's how. And so when we decide, I don't know, maybe a sea apple just is a bad time bomb no matter what, but there's some things in here, dude, that like if we decide that we just shouldn't sell these if we can't keep them alive, some trailblazers are just going to go out and figure out how to keep them alive, right? And there'll probably be some ethical people that supply a small amount of them for that purpose. Another one here, this one, biota, add as much as you take from the ocean. And I don't know if they're actually doing that ratio.
1 for 1, yeah.
Like if you're going to breed, fish and you're going to take stuff out of the ocean, whatever, what happens, man, if you add stuff back? right? Like, hey, dude.
Negative impact.
Negative impact. We're going to go ahead and release a bunch of these yellow tangs and like help, increase the population and help them flourish and be part of the solution instead of the part of the problem, right? And like, that is the thing is like I wish legislators got this piece. We are, when I say we, I mean you guys and all of us together are best equipped to protect the reefs, the best equipped to protect the hobby, the best equipped to protect the animals, because we're the ones that care about it the most, right? And so we are the ones, man, that are best out there. We're bringing awareness. Like the amount of people that have come to my house and come to the office and they say, whoa, I didn't even know that thing that's moving, that's a coral? Yeah, let me tell you all about it.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, man, there's awareness that just didn't exist before. And when they see the next coral reef, bleaching event in the Caribbean, it matters more to them than it did before. It's more relevant.
I know a guy that's growing that stuff in his house who could probably repopulate that coral reef.
Yeah, and so can we add back more than we take, or at least it doesn't have to be like one for one. Just because I took out a Red Sea angel, I got to put a Red Sea angel back in. But like, can I repopulate yellow tanks? Can I repopulate triggerfish as a food source? Because there's lots of nations that live off of that. How do I give back to the industry instead of just take out? And I think there's lots of ways to do that. In this case, it usually isn't on you guys. It's somebody in the industry like ourselves or somebody else is going to have to step up and say, hey, this is how we give back. And then you have to support those people in that effort.
Well, yeah, and that gets back with to us as hobbyists and what we can do. And basically, I mean, you vote with your dollars. You make an impact with the way you spend.
It's true. All right, so what can BRS do in the next 12 months or so on this front? Because this is actually one of the more important fronts. This one is a little outside of our hands because we don't actually touch the animals other than the way that you do, which is house them in our tanks, in our offices and homes and stuff.
We are experts in using your equipment to keep your things alive.
I mean, that is our DNA here at BRS is how do we keep aquariums alive? How do we
build an ecosystem?
Build the life support system, redundancy. It's like, how do you build the perfect space shuttle is our goal, right? And then there's biologists that say, how do you keep the plant alive on the space shuttle? Right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so in that case, man, what we can do is provide information now on how to care for fish and coral. Like, we could go out there and start shooting videos and how to take care of purple queen anthea, what you look for, and don't do it unless you're going to do these things because you're probably just going to kill it, right? Don't buy signal gobies because they're probably not going to live unless you're willing to do this. And when I say willing to do this, I mean willing to do this for the next 5 years.
Yeah, this is a commitment, just like any other pet.
Yeah, and I'm willing to feed this thing every day. It's it was a commitment to me at one point with my cat when I decided that I wanted to feed it, raw food, right? And eventually I moved to whole chicken that was cooked, the beak and all thrown in there.
Yeah.
But I didn't like the idea of, raw chicken around my kids and stuff. But in the end, dude, my cat's fur was way better. Its poop didn't stink. It didn't poop as much. All these other things. I don't know. I'm sold. I felt better about it. But now I have to go over to Woody's, drive across town to pick this thing up every week. Man, it was a lot of effort. But that is what I decided was better. So,
but there's people positioned to spread that coral care, fish care information better than we are, right?
There are, man. The reality is there can be other people that we should encourage other people to do this better.
People who are doing it for a living.
Yes.
Selling corals for a living. You know how to take care of that coral more than anybody else.
Yeah, I mean, the people that, like, I think of Kevin Cohen. That guy knows more about fish, man, than I could ever know in my whole lifetime. So, you know, like, share that information to the best of ability. And I actually followed his Facebook for a while. He was sharing really cool stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so, but, like, the amount of stuff that, you know, Elliot at Marine Collectors has shared with me. And so, the part that I think a lot of them are going to have to get past is, though, even though it seems like it are in their best, not in their best interest to talk you out of that fish, which is basically, hey, this isn't just expert only, it's pain in the ass only.
Right.
It is in their best interest, man. And, you know, so, like, put on there, man, replace expert only with what is this fish's natural habitat? What's its natural diet and frequency? What are the changes to habitat and frequency that would happen in a captive environment? Reef safe with caution means what? It's going to eat polyps like 100% of the time, 60% of the time. Is it LPS polyps? Is it only monopora? Is it only acropora? You know, which one of these is it? Because I don't know what reef caution means, man. And, like, is there anything I could do? Like, if you overfeed this fish, it's very unlikely to happen, right? So, you know, if you want to keep these fish with your acropora, you probably want some auto feeders, and that also means you better up your filtration game. But, like, I can piece all of this together now because, you know what? I just really want that fish, and I'm willing to do the other things that are required to do it.
Well, yeah, there's all of the components of keeping the fish alive fall into that. Like, you know, teach me about the habitat that these things belong in. Teach me about. I mean, you could tell me where they're where they're located, and, you know, how they live in the wild and things like that. But teach me how to take care of this thing in my tank, not what it does in the wild. But both to some degree. But how do I apply that in my tank is what you should tell me.
It's cool, man. Like, the moment that Elliot showed me those fields of rubble that all the wrasses lived in, and I'm like, I can build that in my house, man. And not necessarily like a field of rubble, but I can make little holy aquascapes, so just gluing a bunch of rubble together, and boom, that night, dude, wrasse moves in. He didn't want to live where he was living before. He was just forced to. You know, the moment that he saw his natural habitat, he went right into it. But I'd never know unless somebody told me, man. Right?
That's true.
And, like, it should be on there. And like, okay, so here's the deal. I talk about Elliot a lot because I had so many of these experiences where this dude helped me be a better reefer, man. And so if I went to my most popular website, or I went to my favorite fish store, and they gave me this information, I did it, I watched it happen, and I was a better reefer, I'll go to a knife fight for you.
I'll keep coming. You
know what, man? Me and you forever, right?
Yeah.
Because, like, dude, you helped me do this thing I really love. And I say this a lot internally here, man. Like, when we go through this effort, we help people increase the quality of their lives. And people laugh at me all the time. Like, what do you mean? You're getting them a fish or a coral,
it's a fish
or
tank.
New pump or whatever. Like, no, man, this is people do this to bring joy in their life, man. It's their hobby, they tweak on it, they love the fish, they love the coral, they want to be better. And
what's not joyful about that?
Killing stuff.
Killing stuff.
Yeah, when it looks like crap.
Yeah.
Okay, and then when people don't get it, I'm like, all right, so what if your favorite thing here instead of reefing was golf? And you could watch my video, and I could show you a club that would, like, shave off 3 strokes off your game pretty much consistently.
Just by doing this. And then you
and
go apply it.
And then you beat your buddy.
Wouldn't you know
You haven't
it?
beat your buddy in 6 months, and this week I did.
And then
your life is better.
And then it sticks with you for forever or for a long time? Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm watching your videos again on golf.
It's like we have a desire to do great things, man, and our life is better. So in that spirit, man, real tank size, not the, like, littlest one, because what they're really trying to do in many cases is make it so small that you don't get scared to get it. It should be real. And it could be years. Like, hey, dude, at you know, your yellow tang at 1 inch, man, can survive in a 40-gallon breeder for the next 18 months.
Yeah.
And then you should move it.
Then you better have a plan.
Yeah, well, dude, the plant could just bring it to the fish store, man. You know, it could be anything you want. It could be upgrade, but, like, hey, dude, like, because I don't really know. You don't really tell me, like, oh, yeah, okay, because some fish grow really fast, right? So you get it, and, like, yeah, it's good for a 40-gallon breeder for the next 6 months. And some of them, man, it might be good in a 40-gallon breeder, dude, for the next 4 years. Like, that's helpful information, man.
Oh, yeah.
Give it to me. And in many cases, we talked about this too, not no, you can't have it, but how you can have it is important. Dip type for corals, man. Like, this is something we're going to dig into.
Oh yeah,
'cause
this
I can't help it.
investigates.
Yeah. So like, there's dips out there. So there's freshwater dip. There's iodine dip. There is
Tea tree oils.
There's antibiotic
hydrogen
dips.
peroxide.
Yeah, peroxide.
All kinds of stuff.
But what corals survive that?
I have no idea.
Even the people that sell dip don't tell you. It's mind-boggling. And like, after some of my experience recently with the Euphilia, like, I would never do a Euphilia garden again without a proactive dip treatment for brown jelly. I wouldn't. I just, and it's so cheap and it's so easy. Like, I would say, even if you're just going to get one, man, do it. Right? Like, if you're going to get more than one Euphilia, man, here's the process, do it.
Yep.
Right? Because you don't want that in your tank. Disease info, par and flow information. Like, this one, actually, one guy that does this, I think, really, really well is Than. So,
yeah.
I don't know why Tidal Gardens.
Coral husbandry?
To my mind, Tidal Gardens should be like this big monstrous entity, because they do really great content on corals. And I can always think of this one that really said, this guy's for me, I get it.
Oh, the Blastos.
Yeah, so I'd had problems with Blastos in my first tank, and I just didn't get it, and I was like, oh, maybe it needs more light, which we now know is the stupidest thing ever. But he's like, the first opening thing, man, is like, here's Blastomosa, you didn't know, but this thing likes it in the dark. Like, it does best almost when it's shaded, like in a shadow. And I'm like, wow, really, dude? I moved some corals into the shadow, and like, wow, they do, man, they flourish, right? It wasn't about more light. It was about way less. And how many Blastos, man, have died because nobody bothered to tell you, put the damn thing in the shadow.
I've lost a lot of corals because I didn't know what to do with them.
Yeah.
I was just buying corals because they were cool.
Okay, also, like, some of them die because they're shadowed and stuff, and so, like, is this...
Than is here, by the way.
Oh.
He says, LOL monstrous.
Oh man, Than, dude. Thank you for all your knowledge.
Yeah.
So, some of these things too, like, if you're going to show me, this great, super expensive Walt Disney coral or whatever it is, show me what it looks like as an adult, because you're showing me this little teeny little nubbin, right? And the thing grows like flat as a tabling, or it's a bottle brush, or it's a branching. Like, it's not really easy to tell from a nubbin, man. And when I'm placing them on the rock, dude, how would I know where to put them so they actually have good husbandry with their neighbor?
Well, where we are today, I think this is sort of happening, not on purpose. That whole the lack of information about flow and par and all this other stuff. For your example of the Walt Disney, or these super, it's the cost of the coral that is prohibiting me from buying it, regardless of my knowledge on par and flow like that. I am not going to spend $1,000 on a frag unless I already know what par and flow this thing is.
I'm way more likely if I have all the tools to take care of it, and way more likely also if you show me what the adult looks like.
That's the selling point for the people who selling these things. Is like, I can tell you how to keep this one. It maybe still be $1,000, but you're not going to kill it.
Yep, it's true, man. So here's the deal. On this one, people who live and breed livestock can do this way better than us. Thank you, Than. But we'll step in if needed, man. Like, if it's just not happening specifically with the fish, we're gonna find a way to prioritize this, because if there's anybody in the audience that doesn't actually want to know what reef safe with caution means, or what advanced or expert actually means, and how to get past that, raise your hand. I hope that nobody does, because, like, I think, man, we all want to know. I want to know. I've been doing this 17 years. I still want to know, right? Okay. So this whole thing has been a bunch of different conversations all about the same thing, is how do we be a better version of ourselves to fend off the
future
legislation and acts, because they're going to come at us from all angles. We can choose to do better now. We can choose to let the world happen to us. We can happen to the world instead. So, end of story. We're going to wrap this up here with this sentence. and I want to hear what you guys all think, man. Share it in the comments. But we need the winds of change so we can stop worrying about legislation. And when it comes up to PACs and lobbyists, we're now armed with the industry that's filled with good actors that reject the bad. I'm going to say it one more time. We need the winds of change so we can stop worrying about legislation. And when it comes to all the PACs and the lobbyists that we could hire, we can arm them with how we are an industry filled with good actors that reject the bad instead of embrace them. So, share with us what you think. Is the world going to fall apart? Are we going to be better? What's it going to take to be better? Do you support being better? Was all this worth your time? What do you expect out of us?
Yeah, well, how do you stop future legislation? Yeah.
You know what? I'm going to call this out again. What do you expect out of us? I will go to bat on your behalf to everybody here. All right. Improv 2 live. Yeah. Hopefully answered all of your questions on this to the best of our ability.
Ask what you're going to do for your hobby to keep it going.
What are you going to do for your hobby?
Ask not what this hobby does for you, but what you will do for this hobby.
Oh, see you guys.
See ya.